Hello, you're watching Ellie from Ellymentry Papercrafting. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator here in the UK. First of all, I would like to apologise for my videos not coming out as regularly as they were. As some of you know, I've been away in the USA for almost 3 weeks, and then I came back and took me a week to sort of pull myself together. And then since then, I've been really busy with work, so I'm afraid my time's been really limited. However, I'm back now and hopefully I'll be able to keep up the regular Wednesday evening recorded videos and my Saturday lives. So today's video is not what I'd planned to do. The planned card, I sort of got to a certain point, and then I switched it off because I ran out of time, and then I recorded the second part another day. Sadly, when I recorded the second part, I was interrupted a few times, so I had to keep turning the camera off and on. And for quite a large part of it, I was working away and the camera was turned off. So I couldn't show you that video because it just wasn't complete. So I came up with something completely different this morning, and that's what I'm going with now. And I decided to go back to Christmas Barn, which is one of my favourites. But I'm also bringing in the Scalloped Contours dies as well. Now, this was a real thoughtful process because I didn't really know what I was going to do when I started. I had an idea in my mind, but as it went along, things changed. And I've left all the bits in to show you where I'm kind of thinking about where I'm going next. So I hope you enjoy it. I have speeded it up a bit, so it won't be quite as long and drawn out as the actual filming. But anyway, let's get on with it and you can see what I made. So here we are with the Scalloped Contours dies. This is a set I've used before, and today I'm using the 3 largest rectangular shaped dies to make some frames. Now, to keep the frames together while I cut them, I like to use some low-tack tape, and my favoured one to run through a die machine is this from Heffy Doodle. It sticks the cards and the frames together without actually tearing anything away from the card. So I put the paper sticky side up, and then I put the frames with the cutting side up, and I position them so that I've got equal distance around each of the frames. You're never going to get it perfect, but just do your best. Now, these frames cut around the outside, not the inside. On the inside, they've got markings. So rather than cutting, it gives you an impression. So that's a straight one. That's got little dots. And then the smaller one is little sort of like stitched work. Now lift them up, making sure you keep them stuck together. Now, when I cut them, this is actually the 3rd set I've cut because I want to build them up. So we've got the large one on the outside. You see how easily that peels away and it doesn't tear your card. So the bit I've just put down is a spare bit, and then I've got the large frame here. Just tap it and some of the bits will come out. Run your nails back and forward across there and they all come out really, really easily. So once I've done that one, I'll then show you the next one. This is the middle size one, nothing to push out there. And then the last one is a solid one, and that's where I'm going to do my stamping. So I've got 2 of the 3 I cut out, and this is the middle frame. And I'm just using my Tombow multi-purpose glue to stick these one on top of the other. The reason I'm doing this is because I wanted to make the top frame and the middle frame different thicknesses so that the top frame sticks out from the next one down. So you're kind of like looking through and down into something. So this is a double layer, just making sure it's all lined up. And then to save time, I've already prepared my larger one, and that's got the 3 layers. So they're already stuck together. Now, I brought in some designer series paper, which is called Peaceful Place. Now this isn't available any longer, I'm afraid. It came with a stamp set called Peaceful Cabin last year, but I'm thinking it's going to be perfect for this. So it doesn't matter if your DSP isn't current, use what you've got that goes with your project. And for me, this went perfectly. So I've decided I'm going to use it. Now I'm bringing in Christmas Barn stamp set and my Stamparatus. Now the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to stamp in black ink, and sometimes with black ink you need to stamp more than once. So by using the Stamparatus I can stamp as many times as I want and know that it will end up in the same place every time. So sometimes the stamp is very sticky and it will bring the card up when you open the plastic door. So I usually just put my tweezers underneath that door above the cardstock and hold it down when I lift that up, and that keeps it in the right place. I'm trying to ink up really well, so you'll see me going over and over this stamp with the ink. I keep going till I get what I think is a really good covering, and then I go down, and then I remember that I've got this little chucky thing that I made, so I just go and get that, and it gives you a large area to give you even pressure that you can use. So I lift this up, and it's not a very good image, but you know, I was expecting that with black ink. It does happen. So I have another go with the chucky and it's better, but that centre bit just needs some attention. So you'll see me trying to apply ink in all different ways. I drag it, I pat it, I heavy in the middle, and I go on again, bring that chucky in, and I keep going over it and over it. And then I remember somebody saying if you stand up you get a better impression. So I've done that, giving good, you know, attention to the centre, and that's cracked it this time. So I take it off there, being very careful not to touch it because it's quite wet at this time. Now bring in card base. Now I'm trying out a card which is a piece of A4 scored and folded down the centre, which gives us an 8¼ inch card by 5 3/4 inches. I'm not really sure whether it's going to be the right size. I might need to take it down to a 5 by 7. So I brought all the frames back in with the image to make up my mind. So just getting it all squared up and thinking about things, and I've decided that yeah, definitely this is the size. So I take everything away and I bring in that designer series paper cut down to 8 inches by 5½, and that will give me an 1/8 inch border all the way round. And I just bring my die cuts back on before I start sticking down, just to make sure that it is the right size, it is what I want to do. At this point I think that maybe I might like to add a greeting, so I'm going to need to move this image. Perhaps I might like it to be down in the bottom left hand corner. So I'll have a look at that. I quite like it, but then I think, how am I going to do the greeting? So I've just chosen the greeting and it's a smaller one. So if I put it to the bottom, then the top of the card's going to look a bit bare. So I go move it all back up again. At this point, I'm actually thinking, maybe I might even just use the large frame and that middle centerpiece and don't worry about the center frame. Yeah, I'm quite liking it. Then I decide I need to check if that stamp is a good size for the gap I've got on the right hand side. So I check it and I decide it's okay, but it needs a white background. So I bring in this next size down rectangular cutter from the dice kit, and then I decide that, do you know what, I think I do want that middle frame, and I bring it back in and I faff around with it for a while. I look at it again and I think, yeah, I do want it. You can't see it on the video, but in life you can see the 3D effect it has with the 3 different sizes. And yeah, I'm sold on this now. I'm bringing that other one in and I'm thinking, yeah, that's going to look good. I'm liking this. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm going to do. So I just make sure that I've got some card, and I've used the spare piece that I had out of the middle there to cut one of the frames. And there it is. So then I decide, I think, oh, perhaps I can use another frame. And then I think, no, I don't, because that will not be the desired effect. So I quickly get rid of that. So I'm looking now for my black ink. There it is. And I'm going to stamp this now with the black archival ink. And not using my stamparatus this time. I'm doing straight on with just using a block. So making sure it's really well inked up. When I stamp down, I just press it once and then I let go and I leave it there for a long time while I make a cup of coffee for it to dry, for the ink to transfer. So when I come back and lift off the block, it's been there so long it got stuck and I dropped it. However, I was so lucky, no smudging, and it's beautifully stamped. So I bring it all back in and I look at it and think, it's not conducive. It doesn't really tie up very well. Those two elements on there are too separated, but I don't know what to do about it. So I just carry on, put some Tombow on the back of my piece of designer series paper and get it stuck down using the Tombow to just push it into place to leave an even border all the way around. Run over with my bone folder, which I keep up on the edge, and that spreads the glue, make sure it's all stuck down well. So now I'm thinking about how to pull those two pieces together, and I bring in a piece of ribbon. So this has been kicking about in my stash for a long time. I really don't know where I got it from, but it's the only piece of black ribbon I've got. And I want to keep this all in the monotone. So I come back with this, and then I have a brainwave. The piece of the die I've used to cut around my sentiment has little cut lines down the side. That's what the die did, and I thought, oh, I can feed the ribbon through. So this isn't something I had in mind at all when I started, because I've not used that die before and I didn't know it was going to come out like that. I'm loving it now because it really does pull those two pieces together. Had I thought about it earlier, I'd have left it like that and tucked the ribbon underneath the designer series paper, but it's too late for that because I've stuck it down. So now I've got to think of a way of anchoring this to my die cuts, to the cardstock, and I decide that I would be better if I actually stick the ribbon to that largest stamped image. So that's where I go, and I just get some tear and tape and take the backing off and stick the ribbon down to the back. So now I've got something anchored down to the ribbon, and that was a good starting point because now I know where I'm going. So I bring in this frame and I think about, oh, I can feed it through there. That would be really nice. So I go with that, and then I think I'll bring that frame in. Yep, that'll be really good. That'll stick that down and we'll be ready to go. So then I started to push that through there on the back, and I wish I'd gone with that because it would have been a better finish, but because it was poking out the other end, I didn't think I could do that. So I go back to my card, I put it all together again, and yeah, I get it all on there, and I think, yeah, come on then, let's get it stuck down. So I'm just checking it all again. I keep checking those measurements. I'm looking at the gaps between the two images and the sides of my card. And then I decide to anchor down the barn image. So this is a bit tricky because I want to make sure that it is in the right place. I don't want to stick anything down till I'm sure. So I get my ruler and I just check top and bottom that it's going to measure the same amount. And I've got something off to my left and the ruler keeps bashing into it, so I have to keep moving it. So anyway, I'm confident that's right. And then I look at the top bit and I think, oh, I think that might not be quite right. So I push it up a little bit. Now I've got to keep it in place and put the glue under at the same time. Bit tricky, but I manage. I could have done with a third hand here, but there wasn't one available. So I'm feeling a lot happier now because my main image is down and my ribbon's down. And I think I can work around this. So I take my a piece of tissue and I anchor down the stamp, and I make sure I get that tissue because I think the ink might be still a bit wet. I've got a little smudge on there, so I've used the sand eraser to just get rid of that, which worked really well. Didn't take very long. And I just go back to make doubly sure there. So there we are, that's come out. So then I grab the frame, my second frame, and I glue that down. So round the edge with the Tombow. At this point, I lost my head a bit and forgot that the ribbon was going to go over the top of the side of that frame. So I'm pushing it down, and I'm getting it stuck, and then I pick the other frame up, and then I suddenly realise, oops, I've stuck the ribbon underneath and there's going to be glue on it. But I just quickly get it off. I wipe the glue and it came off and it doesn't show at all. So luckily that came right. Okay, now I check that again. Look, that little bit of a smudge up there. Now I can't tuck this underneath because I've stuck the main image down. So I sit there for a minute thinking. I put that block on there to keep that down to hopefully stick it while I think about how I'm going to deal with this ribbon. So I have a drink of my coffee and then I pop this down and I'm thinking about it. So what I decide to do is to anchor down the left hand side of the ribbon. So I put the glue onto the reverse of this large frame, and then I take a piece of narrow tear and tape, double-sided tape, and I just lay it down just underneath where that ribbon's going to lie on top of the DSP, just to the side of the second smallest frame. And I peel off the backing tape, which proves quite difficult, and push the ribbon down and just get that anchored on, just to make sure. I grab my bone folder and really press down hard because I don't want it to move while I'm sticking that frame in place. I just go in again and give it another quick push. And then I bring my frame in and get it all lined up and I stick that down. So quite happy with it at the moment, and I just use that block to put some weight, to keep some weight on it. And then I put another block on the other side, and then I go away for a very long time. And when I come back, I just chest it all and it's stuck down. So then I'm going to feed my ribbon into the next piece. And now I've got the problem of how am I going to anchor this down and keeping it straight. I thought if I flip it over, I run the risk of this not being in the right place because I can't see it. So I'm sat there thinking, how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? So I grab my double-sided tape again, my trusty tweezers, which I couldn't live without, and I decide I'm going to feed it underneath the ribbon, between the ribbon and the designer series paper. Very ambitious because, you know, I could stick it to anything here, but I stick with it. And as you can see, I'm wiggling it about, I'm it starts to stick where I don't want it here, and I get it under there, but it's not straight, and I have to pull it out, and then I have to wiggle it about again. Oh dear, it was quite a, quite a hard job. It was a bit like an operation, but I managed to get it. Now I need to do the same on the other side, and I went with exactly the same method. So out comes the double-sided tape into the tweezers, and I go for it. Now it's slightly easier on this side because I can lift it up, and that's what I do. And then I get my ribbon through that piece of frame there, and I then take some more. No, I decide to cut it off. That's right, yeah, found my ribbon scissors, and I cut the end off, and then I get some more double-sided tape, and I stick it like this. Now it looks like I'm going to stick that down to the card, but I'm not. I'm only pushing down on the middle where it touches the ribbon, and then I'm pushing it underneath so that it sticks to the piece of card that I've stamped onto. Okay, so I'm feeling really confident now. Everything's as it should be, and I go in with the Tombow and put plenty of glue underneath. Then I think I've put a bit too much glue, so I go in with my finger and just take a little bit off, and then grab those tweezers again, pull it down so it's nice and straight, get that in place, and hold it down for a minute or two, making sure I don't touch that ink, and then on goes those blocks again for a good drying period. And I did leave it quite some time. So I come back in and I'm absolutely loving it. So I went away and thought about it again. That's why the lights changed. And I came back and decided I'd use the Pearlized Enamel Effects in Basic Black. This is a liquid that makes kind of like little pearls. Now you need to just tap it a couple of times to bring the ink to the top. When you squeeze it, it comes out in this liquid little blob, and just practice with it on some scrap for a little while to understand how the flow comes, and you'll very soon be able to replicate the same size. Now this is the best I've used of this kind of product. There's lots on the market, but I found with a lot of them I couldn't get it to set in a proper dome shape, so it looks like a real rounded pearl when it's finished. This one does. It's beautiful, and you do nothing but just leave it. So I decided to just go with a very ordinary one dot in each of the four corners on each of the images, and I really love that. So there's my finished card. I hope you like it. I've used Christmas Barn and the Scalloped Contours dies. If you have liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. Now, apart from the designer series paper, everything I've used is available in the catalogues, and the downloadable digital catalogues, you'll find a link to them in the description box below. And in that description box is also a link to my online store should you wish to purchase anything from those catalogues.